The following program is brought to you by FanBags, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com or use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Step up your game with FanBags Cornhole.
It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands post-game show. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is my guy, Joe Jackson, here hanging out at Mackey Arena. Craig Bowers is underneath the stands, not in this. Joe's in the stands. Yep. Craig's under the stands, talking with Matt Painter, some of the players. Juwan Howard's probably going to speak to the media as well. So we'll get some updates as far as some of the quotes coming from the press conferences, and we'll just do our breakdown of the game, give you the instant reaction as we always do here. So please hit that like button while you're hanging out. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube if you haven't already. We appreciate you guys dropping in because the Purdue Boilermakers were absolutely dominant tonight. It was one of the weirdest, most dominant games I've ever seen too, Joe. I mean, you could argue it was the sloppiest dominant game. At one point, guys are falling all over the place. There was a lot of missed free throws. There was Edey, missing a lot of shots. Like there were so many things you could point to that would have said that it would have been a closer game. But by halftime, this thing was over. And it speaks to Purdue's firepower that they have all the way across the board. Braden Smith certainly came out with a ball of energy, certainly had a little flair to his game, kicking the ball around, getting people open, making some really sweet passes. Lance Jones bringing the energy as per usual on both ends of the floor, and everybody just getting in on the action. So we're going to talk about it all here tonight. Joe, why don't you give us your instant reaction from what it was like to see inside Mackey Arena?
Yeah, I mean, it was a game that you kind of mentioned. It's like, it didn't always feel like Purdue should have been up 30, but at the same time they were. I thought that I put out a tweet in that second half. It was just kind of felt like it was going to be another one of those Purdue just coasts to a 15, 20-point lead throughout the entire second half. They go on another run in that half to push it to 30. You have 13 different players score for Purdue, and Chase Martin and Sam King were the only two not to. And I know one of them for sure had a shot rim out. I can't remember what the other shot was, but just all around a good effort. You had Lance Jones doing his thing. It got pretty electric in here. He pickpocketed Llewellyn twice in the backcourt, hits a couple big threes. It was a game that like Purdue shoots insanely well from three, 14 for 21 from three. I believe that's their best shooting performance of the year. Going to be tough for Michigan to overcome that in general, but like when you look at it, Purdue didn't shoot that well from two, which is where they're just so dominant and steady all game. And that's why I almost kind of felt like it was like, how did Purdue score that many points? But at the same time, they didn't really turn the ball over until the game was already like way out of hand, knocked down threes. It's just kind of, this was this was just who Purdue is, I think, tonight. Michigan obviously in a bad spot where they are, right at the bottom of the Big Ten. And when those two things match up, games like this are going to happen.
Yeah, I think the only thing missing from this game was a Zach Edey 3. I was kind of waiting for it with like 8 or 9 minutes to go. I was like, maybe tonight is the night he pulls up for one. And, you're not going to have too many games like this when you're playing in the Big Ten. And, I thought maybe he'd run himself into one on a high ball screen, but, he stayed where he gets his bread and butter down low. And man, did he lay the hammer down like a Thor thunder hammer. As he corralled a rebound, turned around and slammed it home. That was one of his more prodigious dunks I think I've ever seen him throw down at Mackey Arena. So, and to your point about Michigan being in a bad place, boy, are they ever, man. I mean, I think we've seen some of these teams in early November put up a better fight than what we saw from Michigan here today. And honestly, there's going to be some Purdue fans that push back at me on this and get mad at me when I say this, but it was actually pretty pathetic. And it was sad to see. Like, it's funny because when I go to a game at Northwestern or I've been to a lot of these court stormings that are on the road, and it sucks. Like, you're there and the other team's just giving it to you. The other fans are giving it to you, and you're just frustrated because nothing's going your way, and you're trying to grind your way out to win, and you lose, on a game-winning shot from half court by Ron Harper Jr. or whatever, and it just kills you, and it sits with you for so long. But then when you watch Purdue just beat the ever-loving crap out of Michigan to the point where they're just pathetic, like it was their, and like I even I tweeted at Greg Waddell from Sleepers Media. I was like, I'm not even trolling here. This is sad to see. Like, maybe there's just something that's a part of me, as much as I hate the beatdowns, or as much as I hate the game-winning buzzer beaters. Like, that's what Big Ten basketball is all about. And when you have a basketball institution like Michigan that just looks this bad, like, I don't mind beating Michigan twice, but like, if they're not even going to be a good team in the conference, that's not good for the Big Ten. So it's like, now all of a sudden I've like got a soft heart. So I know I guarantee most Purdue fans are going to hate that I led with this on the show, but it's the truth. Like, I don't know. I guess I want the better competition. I didn't realize it until tonight, because the Nebraska game, I was so pissed off after the game. It wasn't even funny. But now that I'm looking at it, with Nebraska, if they were terrible, I mean, that's just, you're used to that. They're Nebraska. But with Michigan looking like Nebraska of like what we're used to, that it just felt awkward.
Yeah, and they don't have Doug McDaniel either this game. He's suspended for 6 road games, so he will be there for the next game, and that'll at least give them a purpose on offense. I don't know what they were trying to do a lot of the time. It just kind of was they're just trying to figure it out on the fly, and sometimes they hit some shots. Sometimes every once in a while they had some really good stuff, but for the most part, the best way for me to put it is they just had no purpose. Like, they were just out there playing some basketball. And yeah, you're not going to keep it even close against Purdue that way. Just not at all.
No, when they did that high-low in the second half, where the center did a nice job of kind of like flashing and turning, and then he got the bucket, in the way that their bench like was really excited for that play. They were like, yeah, we executed. We did one play. It was just like, who is this team? Like, what, And so I don't know. It was just one of those weird, that was just one of the weirder games, to see just Michigan that pathetic. So, sorry, Greg Waddell. I guess you're just going to have to eat that one for a while. So yeah, hey, I'm not saying don't enjoy the win or anything like that. I was just, speaking to the awkwardness of it. And yeah, I do enjoy beating good teams too. This team is not, but you don't want to play with your food either. If this had been a close game tonight, with how bad Michigan is, I wouldn't be happy with that. So by no means am I wishing this was a closer game. They should beat the crap out of Michigan. They're not a good team this year. But it is just weird to see this program as bad as it is right now.
Yeah, I was just going to throw in our guy Kraig. Before the game started, he's like, I know that like Purdue's just the better team, and you do want Purdue to win by 30, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind a little excitement. that didn't happen. Real quick, bring up this comment. JB said, "Who is Greg Waddell?" Brian said, "I thought that was Matt." Greg Waddell is of Sleepers Media, one of the two guys on Sleepers Media. One of friend of the show, friend of ours. Just he does good work, so definitely go check him out. But he is a Michigan fan, and that's kind of all I have to say about that at this point right now.
Yeah,
so,
Michigan fan and a Purdue troll on Twitter.
Yes.
And Kraig keeps him honest every single day. So
and now Carter Elliott has his co-host, Carter Elliott. He said, because they've been very against Lance Jones for most of the year. At the beginning of the year, Carter was like, if Lance Jones ever scores 20 points, I will buy a Lance Jones jersey. And he might be getting a Lance Jones jersey.
He might be getting one. Brad Prather in the chat says, Waddell said we would crush Michigan, and he really wants Purdue to get that fairy tale ending. So, yeah, shout out to Greg. He's going through it right now. Show them pity. Don't throw dirt in their face. Be above that. I know fans, that's a lot to ask for. And I don't always adhere to those morals as well. If anybody follows me on Bears Twitter, I can get pretty spicy on the timeline. So, sometimes I'm not practicing what I preach. So that's where we're at. The other part that we didn't lead with that I really wanted to talk about is Trey Kaufman-Renn, David Jenkins, really just taking the words out of my mouth here in the chat. As soon as I was about to bring it up, Trey Kaufman-Renn was Rodman-like active going after the boards. David Jenkins in the chat, 100% agree. There was a tenacity and an intensity with the way he was attacking the boards, attacking the loose balls. The left-handed hook at one point where he's trying to get position. He says, screw it, I'm just going to go up with my left hand, and it goes in. I had to rewind it to make sure he did it with his left hand, because I was going to text you guys like, did I just see that? But I had to rewind it to make sure that I wasn't like going cross-eyed. And that, like, Trey Kaufman-Renn, like, he's continued to impress me. He's continued to put my foot in my mouth, as I so often do here on this show, as somebody that was nervous and skeptical of his role in the starting lineup early in the season. First few games, didn't really see how the fit was going to work. Well, I'm seeing it now. Trey Kaufman-Renn is really making this a formidable, starting five. I mean, we all know across the board, doesn't really matter who's starting. We've talked about that plenty of times here on the show, but couldn't have been more impressed with Trey Kaufman-Renn. Once again here tonight, he continues to show all the hype that he had coming into the season.
Yeah, I think it's just showing the value of patience and what Painter believes in. And there's I think TKR probably got a little bit overhyped for coming into the season, and I think that hurt him compared to what fans were expecting, like a 15 point per game, 8 rebound a game guy, like a legit star. And he isn't quite that. But at the same time, I think we're starting to see, like, there is a reason Painter started TKR at the 4 coming into the summer. And we're starting to see that he's starting to become much, much more comfortable. I don't think he got credited for an assist today, but he's just becoming so much more comfortable with the high-low passing, getting the ball to Edey. That's a huge thing. Gillis is great at it. You catch it at the elbow or top of the key, fire it down to Edey. And now, since you're the other big, their other big is now out of the lane. Just get Edey good looks. Like, he's just becoming so much more comfortable on that end. And then defensively, I think this is a good matchup for him. Their best player, Olivier Nkamhoua, has 7 points, 3 assists in 25 minutes of play. Like, TKR was part of that. Also Gillis as well. And we'll talk about him in a minute. But TKR is just comfortable. And he understands now that I think his role is being sort of like Rodman, I guess. I think that's obviously an exaggeration, but being a guy that just has to be active, has to be on the glass. He had 3 blocks. I think he was really good rotating more from the weak side, just kind of helping protect the rim. If he can kind of do that, especially when it's TKR and first on the floor together and not Edey, that's going to be big. Like, I think he just made a lot of the hustle plays that he needs to be on the floor, and when that's happening, now he can get going offensively. The lefty hook, obviously, there's no words that really need to be said. That was just pretty, and that's I don't know how much he'll have to go to that this year, but next year when we do look ahead, that's going to be something he's going to have. Teams are going to focus in on him more in the post, and they know that he wants to get to his right hand. He's going to have stuff like that lefty hook, but just good to see. I think Painter has 2 legit options at the 4 in TKR and Gillis. Some games it's going to be TKR, some games it's going to be Gillis. Good options to have.
No question about it. Gillis is really starting to settle in. When he goes up for a shot, you feel good about it going down. So,
Yep. Shooting over
last year,
50% from three.
exactly. So that's why it feels that way. Like you're the numbers guy, so you're looking at it when it goes up, and the number in your head. And for me, it's the vibe. It's the
Yep.
that's how I watch the game, and I'm feeling more and more confident when he's out on the floor. I'm hoping Caleb First can find his way at some point, because it does feel like he's struggling today when he made that move and just completely whiffed on the shot. Like, it's just sometimes with Caleb, he's such a he's just, I don't want to say erratic, but like just the way he moves is so sporadic. Like he's moving so fast, and he's got to get his feet under him, and play with a little more stature. I don't even know how to explain it, but it just feels like he's falling all over the place. And when he's fighting for rebounds and loose balls, like that's, you can have that, and you can be a real menace to the opposing team. But when he's trying to score, it just feels like he can't get the ground underneath his feet.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I think especially today, First did a lot of the little things. He really did. He just, like,
he always does.
Lack of a better word, he just has the yips. Like, he really does. He just can't finish around the rim this season. And it doesn't seem like he has a ton of confidence in his game down there. I mean, he had 6 rebounds and 3 assists according to Shan Cox. Like, he does other stuff. He's pretty good defensively. He's just like, I don't know what it is offensively. He gets some good looks, and he's athletic and 6'11" and long, and like, it just doesn't make sense that he can't convert. I guess the hands need some work, and it's tough because, like, if he was just a little bit more consistent there, he would be a legit third option at that 4 spot, or as a big, right? I think Painter probably has a hard time playing with him right now, just because there's like just such a lack of his ability to finish at the rim. He's shown in the past he can do it. Hopefully he comes back. I'm hoping, again, just this is more looking to next year. Like, I think this year he might have a little bit of the, like, looking over his shoulder, and because he knows that, like, he knows that his minutes are limited. Making a mistake can get him pulled pretty instantly. Maybe that works into it a little bit. Obviously, that's all just speculating on a player that we have no clue. But just it's just weird. I got no other words other than it's just weird to see.
Yeah, I think Nobles found the word that I was having trouble finding. Frantic. It feels frantic. Like when I said with Gillis, like, I'm feeling confident. Like when he goes up for a shot, I can feel his confidence. And with First, it just you can feel that franticness from him. And I'm sure he's frustrated. Like, wants to have better games and stuff. And it eventually will come to him. But like, when I watch, because I watched him a few times in high school coming out, and then when he first came as a freshman, it felt like he played at a more methodical pace in a place of strength, and obviously when you're going up against, high school guys that might not have the same level of competition, it's different. But, it's just like, I just feel like he needs to play to his size. Sometimes it feels like he shrinks a little bit. I'm hoping everything I'm saying is making sense, because this is just how my basketball brain works when I watch the game. Like, I feel like his stature, he could play bigger than how he does. He is a big guy.
No, I think that's totally fair. I don't have too much to add on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll continue to move it around the horn here. Again, I mean, Purdue just completely dominant here today. They won 99-67. They don't get the 100 burger. They don't get the free chicken sandwiches. That whole thing's certainly taken on a life of its own. I mean, they're talking about it on the Peacock broadcast. They've got like a breakdown of how many times they've gotten it and what's on the line. And Mackey Arena, certainly, I mean, when you talk about the fans in the stands like we do here on the show, that was the loudest moment here tonight.
Yeah, it's fun. That's all it is. It's just fun. It gets loud. Lance Jones, when he ripped the guy, that got really loud too. But yeah, I got nothing else really there.
Yeah. And Icy Mike's giving it to me in the chat about focusing on first efficiencies. We don't have to continue. I'm not focusing on them. I want all the players on the team to play great. Yes, we understand the team has all of it covered. It's not like we need first to be a 20 points per game scorer. I'm not asking for that. I'm just looking at each player individually, and I'm sure Caleb wants to play better offensively than he has. I'm not saying what he's doing on the team isn't valuable. He, like I said, he's a great role player who is scrappy, gets after boards, gets after loose balls, and he had some assists here tonight. But offensively, he's, hasn't, had some great games, especially here since we've started Big Ten play. I'm sure he'd like to as well. So I'm not asking for him to score 20 points or anything like that. I just, looking at the game and hoping better for him, because I know that's what he would want, Mike. So you guys just calm down in the chat. We're going to throw plenty of rose petals at the team, and we'll get into the stats of the game here as we always do. Purdue shoots a red hot 52% from the field on 34 of 66 shooting. Michigan, ice cold, 34% from the field on 23 of 68 shooting. 67% from the three-point arc. I mean, that's just insane. 14 of 21 from the three-point stripe for Purdue. 9 of 29 for Michigan at a 31% clip from the three-point arc. Purdue, surprisingly, 65% from the free throw line, 17 of 26 from the line. Michigan goes 80% from the line at 12 of 15. So Purdue outshoots them, but at a lower percentage. 7 turnovers apiece for both teams, 10 points off of those turnovers for Purdue, 7 for Michigan, 46 total rebounds, 32 defensively, 14 offensively for Purdue, 37 rebounds for Michigan, 23 defensively, 14 for the Wolverines. 34 bench points for Purdue, 21 for Michigan, 10 fast break points, only 2 for Michigan, 4 blocks for Purdue, 2 for Michigan, 5 steals for Purdue, 2 for Michigan, 24 assists for Purdue, and 16 for Michigan. Purdue led for 38 minutes and 37 seconds, of this game. So, a completely dominant effort here tonight. 24 assists on 7 turnovers. We talked a little bit about it here at the start, but obviously that's something that stands out to me. What stands out to you, Joe?
3-point shooting, because 14 of 21 is just absurd 3-point shooting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different players hit a 3, which is crazy. Turnovers is the other thing. 7 turnovers, none in the first half. And honestly, I'm not worried about the second half turnovers one bit. I believe 2 of them came in transition of just it's those plays where you're up 35 and Mackey could go actually blow the roof off. So you're trying to throw a lob or make a play, 2 of them there, and then 3 or 4 in garbage time, whatever. That's a big thing though. Purdue did not have a turnover in the first half. That's just when they take care. We say all along, when they take care of the ball, good things are going to happen. It happened. That's how, I'm going to look at the first half specifically for right now, because that was the more interesting part. That's how you put up 49 points while shooting less than 50%. You shoot insane from 3 and you don't turn the ball over. It balances out. Just really, really good stuff from there. Those are probably the 2 things that stand out for me overall. Also, Purdue averaged 1.46 points per possession. I will double check that really quick, but that has to be one of the most efficient games all season, and it comes against a Big Ten team. Yeah, that was their most efficient offensive game of the entire season, and that's a game in which Edey struggled to shoot from the floor, and you played the backups for the final 7-8 minutes. Just really, really good stuff from Purdue in general overall. I don't have too much else on the stats in particular. I guess we can, if you don't have anything on stats, I'll just jump into Jones, because I think that's where we have to start, right? Is Lance Jones. 24, 24 points, 1 assist, 5 of 9 from 3, had 2 steals, I believe.
Yep.
3 steals, 2 of them just where he pickpocketed in the backcourt. Got Purdue or got Mackey on its feet. These are the type of games that when I talk about the Lance Jones experience, like it is not always negative. Like this is also a part of the Lance Jones experience of you're going to get games where he's just like, he just goes absurd. He has all the confidence. He took his time shooting. He really didn't care if there was defenders there at all. This is the type of game that Lance Jones can just absolutely have it in any game. It's fun that it comes against Michigan, and like I just don't know what to say. Like we mentioned it all year long, but he just brings such a different energy to this team, to the starting lineup. Defensively, he has these games offensively. He can be aggressive getting to the rim, although he wasn't crazy efficient from twos today. Just really, really good stuff from Lance. Like also, the other thing with his defense is I wanted to call out, and Braden Smith I thought did a good job too. That first 12 minutes, especially the first half, Lance and Braden were locking up. Lance especially, he was, I know that they don't have Doug McDaniel and they're all like, I understand all that, but it was still just their guards couldn't move. Like their guards couldn't do a single thing against Lance Jones. And it was just really good to see him have this type of game in Mackey, a place that he loves. Like Lance was destined to be a Boilermaker. He just has that vibe.
No, it's no question. I just saw Dance Jones. Tarek,
I like that.
Tarek Kamel. I don't know if that's been said before, or if Tariq just came up with that, but that's good. That's really good.
That is. So, Dance Jones.
State your claim in the chat if you made that up or if you found it, and you better be honest with me, because we might be using that on Boilers in the Stands on our Twitter account, and we'll credit you for sure. That because that's good. I mean, he keeps doing the dance, I guess it's from an Instagram post somebody's saying, and then but now Tariq is saying he came up with it. We'll just stay tuned for those updates. All right, we'll find out here in a little bit. Regardless, great nickname because he does the dance coming out of halftime every time. What do they call it? The sandstorm?
Yeah.
Is that what they call it? I mean, you're the kid here. I'm the old man. You're the one that is recently removed from the paint crew. So you got to help me out in this whole thing.
No, you got it.
All right. So he is 100% saying he came up with it. Patty Ice is saying, I believe you, Tariq. So we are rolling with this. Dance Jones from our Boilers in the Stands chat. We will credit you. Tariq Kamel coming up with a fantastic nickname for a guy that really brings a lot of energy and has quickly become a fan favorite here in Purdue. And I put on our Twitter timeline, make sure you follow us at Boilers in Stands. He is their X factor. He's their X factor on both sides of the court. That's like, to me, when you want to talk about what they could do here later in the year, like Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Zach Edey, they're all a year older from what they were last year. They're all ready for this fight. And now you add in a guy who is a difference maker on both ends of the court, who you could argue has as big an impact as Braden Smith or Zach Edey at times. Defensively, he's in the guards. And when you talk about what he does offensively and his fearlessness to attack the rim, shoot the threes, he is their X factor. There's no question about it. So Dance Jones is certainly somebody to get excited about if you're a Purdue Boilermakers fan.
He's everything this team needs. All the energy, all the swagger, just the ability. Like, if there comes a game later in the season where it's like Purdue looks shaky, it's who wants to shoot, who wants to get the ball, whether it goes in or not, I'm confident Lance Jones will let that thing fly. And Purdue kind of needs it. He's elite. He's been really, really good defensively. Like, I don't know if he'll end up making an all defense team or not, just because there's a lot of good bigs, especially in the Big Ten, but he has a legitimate case to make the all defense team in the Big Ten.
Yeah. It's exciting. So let's move it around the horn here and continue to spotlight some of these players that had a big night. I don't know which way you want to go with this, but I mean, I guess we can go to Braden. 11 points on 4 of 4 shooting, 1 free throw, 1-on-1 from the free throw stripe.
1-on-1 from 3.
1-on-1 from 3.
2 of 2 from free throw.
Oh, yeah, because I'm blind. 7 assists, 7 rebounds, 10 assists. I am butchering as I clearly am having issues reading. It's late. Come on. 10 assists, 7 rebounds, only 2 turnovers, in 26 minutes of action. So doesn't get the triple double, but certainly had a big night here tonight. And like we were saying from the top, really came out the gates with a ton of energy and had a lot of flair to his game. Just I think you could tell they had a good game plan because you could see the confidence in how they were executing early on, almost like they knew that they were going to manhandle this team.
Yeah, and Braden was he was in total control the entire game. No turnovers in the first half, and he had, what was his first half stats? 9 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 0 turnovers at half. Like, literally any pass he wanted to make, he made. Cross court skip to the corner, boom, on the money. In the fast break dump off, yes. In the fast break dump off, Lance Jones 3, sure. Edie in the post, high low, like you could just go on and on. He like every single type of pass, every single type of play you want to see from Braden, he had. You saw him just command the defense in the pick and roll. The one time he drives to the short corner, does like 2 pump fakes, draws the foul. I think it was good to see him hit his 3. It was good to see him go 3 of 3 overall, or 4 of 4 overall, 1 of 1 from 3. Like, I do think he was a little hesitant to shoot as he's been in the shooting slump. That is something I will be watching going forward. But at the same time, I think he also knew he could just make good plays whenever he wanted. And so he didn't quite have to force the threes, force the perimeter shots. Man, it's so fun watching Braden Smith play. Like, his ability to see the floor at all times and I watch him in transition. Like, when Purdue kind of has a transition play and he's at the opposing free throw line, there's a lot of times you can just be like, yeah, Braden Smith's going to go to this guy. Like, he knows 75 feet away from the rim where he needs to go with the ball. It's unreal to watch.
Yeah, no, it's exciting knowing the evolution. You getting in trouble here, Joe? Okay. Not getting in trouble. Or are you getting in trouble? All right. He's good. So yeah, I think with this team, we've talked about plenty of times how complete they look and mature from last year. When you talk about Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, in their sophomore year, you can see they've been through this. And one of the questions we had early on when they came out the gates hot, just like they did last year, was like, well, they hit a wall at some point last year. Well, we're halfway through now the meat and potatoes of the Big Ten schedule. And they've had a couple tough road games, where they, took care of business and IU and Iowa and Iowa made it a little close there at the end, but really they were in control of that game pretty much all the way through. And now they come home and just completely demolish a team that, they should, they didn't play with their food here tonight. And that shows a level of maturity. Like they were saying at halftime on the Peacock halftime show with Jordan Cornette, like the fact that they were up by 20 and they had really played pretty sloppy. They had missed free throws. Zach Edey had only had 6 points. Like, they weren't really playing that great, but they just had so much firepower. Lance Jones, Mason Gillis, the end of half 3 by Fletcher Lawyer. That was one of the nicest moves I've seen him put on a guy one-on-one, and he buried it right in his face. So, everybody was getting in on the action, and it just goes to show you their margin of error is much bigger than it was last year.
Yes, I realized I was on mute, but I was agreeing with what you were saying for a lot. This team can beat you in multiple ways. I think that starts with Braden. Even if he isn't scoring, he can still do other stuff.
And I don't know if Kraig's by you, but if he wants to hop on, he's more than welcome, obviously.
Yeah. He's logging on.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Tell
him I said no, that he can't hop on.
I think he would appreciate that.
No, we have to get Kraig on. We've got to hear what he said from the presser, and somebody's got to help carry the weight here because I know Joe's back's got to be killing him from carrying me here for the first 35 minutes of this show. So make sure you hit the like button for Joe while he goes to get back surgery tomorrow. And, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're doing our best here to try to keep you guys entertained. And
2K subs, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, 2,000
everybody.
subs here since the last time you guys heard from us. So we appreciate all of your support as we continue to grow this thing and build this community out. So Kraig Bowers will be joining us here shortly. But before he does, as far as minute rotations in a game like this may not be as, something that you're going to key in on, in a closer, matchup, but anything that stood out to you in particular?
Yeah, I think the second half is kind of a wash. I don't think there's anything to take away from that. Morn was the first sub. Sometimes, it's been kind of oscillating between Morn and Heidi. I think the only other thing to note is Braden Smith gets those last 2 minutes of rest at the end of the first half. That was a big thing after the last game was, how does Braden get more rest? Even the first 3 minutes, that 3 minute rest there, like that 2 minute rest at the end might have came just because Purdue was up so much anyways. But, we mentioned like, hey, Braden might need more minutes. I've been like, hey, Braden's so important to the offense. I understand that Painter might not always want to, but at the same time, Matt Painter's a pretty smart guy, I would say. I think he also understands that like Braden just can't be rolled out for 39 minutes every single game if they want the legs to stay. Nothing else too much really for me here. Pretty standard game, I would say for the most part. Purdue goes up big. Last 10 minutes is pretty much just a wash at that point then. But we are joined by our guy Kraig Bowers from the pressers. Kraig, what anything interesting stand out to you from the pressers from Jawan or any of the Purdue players? Well, who were the players for Purdue?
Did Jawan Howard start crying?
Jawan Howard was not at the press conference. He apparently stepped outside the locker room and did a press conference with the Michigan reporters, but did not actually come into the press conference room. And that's happened every once in a while. I wouldn't say it's like completely unheard of. So it certainly happened before when I've been down there, but no, he did not join us. In terms of players, it was Lance Jones, Zach Edey, and Braden Smith. And then obviously we heard from Coach Pater too. One of the big things, obviously turnovers was a highlight of this game. The fact that it was 11:59 into the game before we had our first turnover. Braden joked that he had to screw that up and get the first turnover by throwing it into the backcourt, but obviously fantastic statistically from a turnover standpoint. And one of the points that Painter made in regards to that was just how vital it is to take care of the ball because of the rebounding advantage that this team almost always had. He got asked if this was the best rebounding team that Purdue's ever had or that he's had as a coach. And he said, yes, just because of the depth they have in rebounding when Gillis comes in, when First comes in, what TKR is doing this year, crashing the boards on the other side of Edey there. And when you're going to have that many advantages, that many chances to get offensive rebounds and to get putbacks, sometimes you just got to be able to get shots up on the glass, right? So if you can limit turnovers to an extremely low amount, you're going to get more of those chances for putbacks on offensive rebounds. And when you have that big of an advantage, it's so vital. So that was one of the big things that he talked about, I guess. The players really hit on the fact just how much fun they have cheering on the walk-ons that come in there at the end. The Brian Waddell dunk, the Carson Barrett 3. Those guys put in work. And like Zach said, they probably have, the best kind of practice group that they play against of any team in the country. Was one of the things that he was mentioning. So when those guys get their chance to come in and have a little bit of shine, they love it as much as those players do that are actually out there on the court.
Yeah. Brian Waddell had a huge throwdown at the end of the game, big time throwdown, so not your typical, victory cigar lineup that you'll see for some teams rolling out there when Purdue's up by 30 points here on Michigan. I took some heat, Kraig, early in the show, and I thought I'd share it with you because I tweeted at Greg Waddell that it was like, I'm not even trolling here, but it's honestly sad to see how bad Michigan is. Like that's how pathetic they look tonight. And like, I've had so many games here in the last few years where Purdue's lost, on a buzzer beater and the other team storms the court, and we've had frustrating losses, close games. We know all the heartache, but all of a sudden it was just like one of those role reversals where you're not, I've seen Purdue beat the crap out of a team, but Michigan, it would just felt so bizarre to watch that. Like, I don't know. It just felt pathetic. And there was a part of me that honestly felt sorry for them and was like, and I know there's rivalry. I'm not trying to say like, but it's just, there was just something about it that was like, man, this isn't right. Like, what's going on here?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Michigan's been bad for most of the season. And then when Doug can't travel with the team, they're going to be even worse because he's as vital to Michigan as Jameer Young is to Maryland or Tyson Walker is to Michigan State from a scoring standpoint. But I've had them at the bottom of my Big Ten rankings for a couple of weeks now in terms of power rankings. And really, they started the season off decent. It's weird because in my power rankings, like the bottom 4 or 5 teams, Michigan's the only one that has 2 quad 1 wins and maybe the only one that has any quad 1 wins. But they took a turn for the worse in a really, really bad way. And it's been ugly basketball since.
100%. And for clarity for everybody that's joined us here a little later, Greg Waddell is a podcaster on Sleepers Media. He's been on our show a few times. Joe and Kraig have been on their show. They cover all of the Big Ten and all of college basketball. Him and Carter Elliott do a fantastic job. They're very entertaining, and they've been really great with us here the last few years. So make sure you follow.
Not related to Brian Waddell, by the way.
Not related to Brian Waddell from Sleepers Media. They do a great job. So make sure you hit them up. And Kraig is always keeping them honest on Twitter. And that's, doing the Lord's work. So we appreciate that, Kraig. That's a good thing. We got to keep everybody honest. I'm doing it on Bears Twitter, and that's a full-time job. And it's not fun at all. So
off topic, I respect your grind of making everything about Bears. I see your tweets sometimes pop up.
I can somehow make this game. If you want, I can somehow make this game here tonight and spin cycle it into what the Bears are going to do at quarterback. I swear to God, I can do it.
I would love to see that after the show.
Somebody at the post-game press conference when it was done asked me if I was Team Justin or Team Caleb, and I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "The Bears. Your guy covers the Bears. Don't you tune into all that?" And I say, "No, I tune that out as much as I can." Other than the fact that I hop onto a random Bears space at like 12:30 at night sometimes when Braggs is on there just because I'm bored. And that is some of the wildest shit you've ever listened to in your life.
Yeah, calling those Bears spaces is giving it too much credit. That's not what we're doing in there for the most part. So, but yes, we do argue about the quarterback ad nauseum, and it's a very toxic group. If you think Purdue fans are toxic at times, I would love to introduce you to Bears Twitter right now. They are not a fun bunch as we try to figure out what the direction is going to be for that football team. But we're not talking about the Bears. That's exactly why I come on this show, to get away from that life for 5 minutes and talk about these Purdue Boilermakers. So we were kicking it around the horn, Kraig. We've already talked about Lance Jones and Braden Smith, and we hadn't really covered any of the other players. If you wanted to touch on either one of those guys before we went around to some others, we'll try to keep this show to an hour, or you guys are welcome to do it as long as you want. But, if there's something you want to talk about with Lance Jones and Braden Smith before we move on to some of the other players, the floor is yours.
I mean, they played really good ball, and obviously, and one of the things that Painter talked about, he said, sometimes you look at a stat sheet and a guy put up 16 shots or 14 shots, whatever Lance put up, and you think, man, he really forced the issue. And one of the things that he talked about was how Lance got those shots organically tonight. He said there was only one shot in the entire game that he questioned a little bit about whether Lance should have taken it. He said everything else was in the flow of the offense, or when Lance got a switch up top so that he had a mismatch and could take that guy to the rim. Even when it didn't work out, Painter was fine with him doing it because that's what he wants him to do when he gets that mismatch. So, from that standpoint, just from a decision-making standpoint, he played a really good game regardless of the points that he scored. It was great to see him, this was his role that he played always at Southern Illinois, right? Like him and Domask were the primary scorers there. So this was his role, and he hasn't really had that night where he's got to be like the primary scoring guy out there. And he kind of got to fall back into that role, but he did it within the flow of the offense. So it was nice to see him kind of have that night. I wouldn't expect it become the norm by any means. But it was good for tonight. And I think especially defensively, somebody asked Lance a question about what was more impressive to him, that his total points or the 3 steals, and he very quickly answered the 3 steals, that he was proud of his defensive effort. Painter mentioned that the first time he picked Llewellyn's pocket, he thought really gave the team a big burst. And then obviously Braden almost hits a triple-double, and he was just a master, playing with a yo-yo on a string out there all night. And I think Joe said you guys already kind of talked about TKR right at the beginning too.
Yeah, he was the person for me. That's why I texted you about the left-handed hook. Like, not just the left-handed hook was extremely impressive, but his tenacity on the boards, just his activity is just. He's always kind of been like, it just seems like even more aggressive than I've ever seen him tonight than I've seen him before. It seems like every game he's getting more and more intense with his play.
Yeah, for me, the scoring's always been there for him. For me, it's his improvement on defensively. He finishes with 3 blocks tonight, but just in terms of his lateral movement and being able to cover people in space without fouling, because last year his foul numbers were high and he'd always get in early foul trouble, and Painter couldn't really give him minutes sometimes when he wanted to, because he would rack up fouls quickly. And he's just improved so much in terms of his ability to guard people in the post without fouling, in terms to step out to that 3-point line and cover people in space. And then coming over on weak side help. And, he comes over. I think Reed was taking Edey once and kind of had him beat. And TKR came over and swats him from behind. Maybe did that twice in the game, a similar situation. So that's the biggest area of improvement for me. I always thought if he could improve defensively and improve his aggression and just reading angles on rebounds, that he was going to get more minutes, because he was our second best post scoring option. And I think those things have allowed him to show out offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. All right, so let's kick it around. I don't know where you guys want to take this. We talked about Lance, TKR, Braden Smith. So I'll let you guys kind of decide where you want to take this next. I mean, Mason Gillis, has 8 points on 3 of 3 shooting. I know I just said I'll let you guys decide, and then I just decided 1 of 1 from the 3-point line, 5 of 8 from the free throw stripe, 1 assist. So, I mean, am I reading this right? He did not register a rebound, or I'm not reading this right, as per usual. Joe, I am not to do this anymore. You are doing this, because if I continue to butcher this, people are going to get really sick of this charade of me attempting to read this stat sheet. You go ahead, Joe. You got the young eyes.
Who you're saying Mason Gillis?
I was talking about Mason Gillis, and I started, because they're all the lines are so close to each other, and I get lost on which line I'm reading. I just can't do this. I am
8 points,
worthless.
3 rebounds, 2 assists. There we go.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Jesus.
Yeah, just a solid. I think like that's the type of game you want from Mason Gillis. 3 of 3 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3. Good rebounding. I think it wasn't the greatest matchup when Michigan was double big and he was on Nakamwa. I think that's when you saw Nakamwa get maybe 4 of his points. Only 7 points though. Mason Gillis and TKR just played better than Michigan's 4. In Nakamwa, and Nakamwa's a really good player, so that happening going to be good. I don't have too much more on Gillis though, and it really, I don't have too much more on Gillis. Like, just that's who he is. That's what Mason Gillis does for Purdue this year.
All right. Well, we'll just continue to kick it around the horn. Kraig, was there anybody you wanted to highlight on tonight's play?
I think we have to at least give a nod to Colvin. We know he can go on a heater anytime he comes into the game. And actually, when he came into the game, I looked over at Joe and I said, we might still hit 100 if Colvin is on one of his nights where he's going to just be on from outside. Because he can put up 12 points in 2 or 3 minutes, and he was on one. He goes out there, he shoots 3 of 4 overall, 3 of 3 from 3, and I think 7 minutes total. So he scores 9 points in 7 minutes. Just kind of quickly racked up some points there, and Miles is gonna get minutes sometimes. I don't know when it'll be. But somewhere along the line, there's a pretty good chance. It's been a while since we've had a night where at least 2 out of the 3 guards aren't going from a scoring point. but somewhere along the way, it's going to happen. And it won't surprise me at all if Miles comes in and plays 15 minutes sometime along the way, whenever that does happen.
So go ahead, Joe. I apologize.
All I wanted to add is I think it's good because Colvin is, kind of getting squeezed out of the rotation. Even if it is against, not great competition, he is just ready to come in and fire away and still make shots. Like, I think that's just something to note going forward, because that's, if he's on the floor, that's why he is on the floor, to shoot the ball and maybe dunk in transition, and just have that energy.
So there's a video making the rounds on Twitter, and we're certainly not going to make our platform a thing to try to start drama, but someone in our chat, JB, there's fans acknowledging there was a moment in the game where he looked pissed off, and the cameras caught him saying something. It's hard to, you can't say for certain what he says, but there's people saying that he's saying, pass me the fucking ball. And, so I texted you the clip, but, I don't really, I'm kind of uncomfortable, like, where to take this. Fans are talking about it. I don't want to overdo it as far as over dramatizing it for what it is. I mean, he's a competitive guy. I'm sure he wants to play more. But as far as body language, because everybody kind of becomes body language experts in these moments, his body language, you guys are there at the stadium. You guys are, around, these guys after the game. Are you guys noticing anything with Miles that would show you that he's not happy with what's going on this year with his role?
I mean, my biggest take is, I mean, you want that guy to be mad, that you want him to want minutes. Like,
yeah,
nobody's sitting over there not wanting minutes. He's a really good player and he wants to play. And, we see stuff get heated in football on the sidelines all the time. Look at Tom Izzo and his players. Stuff gets heated sometimes. People are going to say stuff, and he's not saying stuff to anybody else. I mean, he said something to Lance there, but he was wide open, and Lance drove it to the rim, and he was on a heater, and he wanted the ball. Big deal. Go away.
Right. And Painter said how many times.
He went to the bench. He gave everybody a high five. He was cheering for the walk-ons when they scored. Like, I get that he appeared visibly upset on the bench, and when he went to the bench, and that he appeared upset when he wanted the ball. I also don't think it's a dam breaking type of moment. It's just a guy who wants to put up the ball and who wants some minutes, and he's going to keep working for it, and won't be surprised at all if somewhere along the line before it's over this year that we're going to need him and he's going to get some of those minutes.
Well, and to your point, Painter said that more than a few times in post-game pressers. I want guys to be pissed off if their role isn't what they want it to be. He's like, I'd be more worried if they were okay with it. And and then to the other point of, he came in ready. He went 3 of 4. So that shows you that he's staying locked in. So, fans are going to try to look through things, and everybody's always looking ahead to how the roster is going to fill out next year. But we're worried about this year at the end of the day. And, he's staying, locked into what he wants to do, and he wants more for himself, just like every player on this team does. So that's kind of how I read it. But at the end of the day, that is something we're going to talk about. Fans are talking about it, and it's something that you saw visibly on the telecast and on the court if you were at the game. And so, we're going to talk about those things. We're also not going to gas it up for more than what it is here. That's, at the end of the day, we're covering this team. So we got to try to be fair to our evaluations, but we also can, be modest in our approach.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is there's a lot of comments saying that Colvin's going to transfer. Obviously, we have no clue, but like, in my head, that doesn't make any sense. His, dad played here. His sister is currently here playing volleyball. Like, and if this was his junior year or sophomore year, sure. It's his freshman year. He's on the number 2 team in the country, number 2 AP poll, probably the best team in the country. Legit, tournament aspirations. A really good wing and guard group. Like, I think Colvin can also understand context and understand that, like, he thinks he should get more minutes, and that, like Kraig said, that's a good thing. I think he can also understand that, like, hey, next year there's going to be more minutes up for grabs. I just don't see how he transfers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
and there's still a really good chance that he starts next year. Like when you look at what the rotation might be next year, it's basically going to be between him and Cam at the 3 spot, and that team next year with Zach gone is likely going to need more scoring punch from the outside. So I can't see him sitting there and not realizing that there's a really good chance that he may start, and that even if he doesn't start, he's probably going to get 20 plus minutes a game next year. So I can't see that. We obviously don't know. But time will tell.
Time will tell, and that's what we do here. We look at the past, present, and future. We cover it all, but we're locked into dreams of March success and not March Madness. So we'll see what happens this year first and foremost. And that'll be, the thing that we talk about the most here on Boilers in the Stands post-game show. So make sure you hit the like button, as we've mentioned before. Appreciate you guys hanging out. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I don't know if there's anybody else in particular you guys want to highlight.
We need to at least mention Zach Edey. I don't think we talked about him.
No, we didn't.
What are you guys
points.
Doing?
Well,
I missed the first 30 minutes of the show, and you don't even talk about the National Player of the Year.
He's only the National Player of the Year. Well, we've been here an hour. What do you expect? We were going to get him in the second hour of the show.
16 points, 10 rebounds, and a block. JB goes, do we need to talk about Edey only getting 16? And then I think he later said that it's because Painter wore him down. Zach Edey just had 3 straight 30-point double-doubles. I think he's fine. I think Terrace Reed did it, honestly. Terrace Reed might have done the best job all season one-on-one against Edey. And Edey still had 16 points and 10 rebounds.
He was doing a good job of pushing him out. Yeah,
he did a really good job pushing him out, just making life tough. Edey still almost shoots 50%. He has a double-double in 26 minutes. He just missed he had a few tougher shots than usual. And if other people can really start replicating that, then I think it's more of a concern. But just one of those games that Edey has still. It's funny. I think it's funny that, and it is true, right? But 16 points, 10 rebounds, a block. Most players were like, man, that's such a good game. Zach Edey's like, and it wasn't, it was whatever. Just where he's at. That's insane.
Well, and I think a lot of it too is just, what can you take advantage of from an offensive standpoint based upon what their defense is doing? And like you said, and we talked about it, Reed did a heck of a job while he was in there. And as soon as Reed went out, then they started to feed Zach a little bit more, but Reed was doing a really nice job pushing him out, making those shots tough, making them be 6-7 footers instead of being 4-foot hook shots or whatever it usually is. And one of the things Painter talked about in the presser was the fact that hey, Braden's going to have some games where he scores 20 plus for us because that's what the defense is given. And he's going to have some games where he doesn't. And is that he wants this team taking the shots that the defense gives them. Right. So some of that tonight was Reed playing him well. Some of it was just what is Michigan giving Purdue and the fact that everybody else was hitting for Purdue. So why force the issue? Take the shots that are open, make sure you hit them. That's what they did.
Yeah, and the thing that I continue to hit on, and I don't know if it's a revelation, but it does feel different. When it comes to Zach Edey's post play, I'm really enjoying the way Braden Smith is figuring out how to get him the ball. There's just so many times in losses or when they're, in a tight game that's the hardest part, and it's one of the more underappreciated strengths a player has on a Purdue team over the last 5-6 years that I've been covering this team is guys that can get the ball in cleanly to Travion Williams and Matt Harms and Zach Edey. It just goes so underappreciated. And even with a guy as big as Zach, sometimes it's not easy to get it in there. Well, Braden's finding out all these creative ways now to get him the ball, and Zach's on the same page where they're, he's getting down low, picking up the dribble, and Zach's angling because he's understanding what Braden's trying to do, getting his body with the defender behind him. And they're just doing such a nice job of finding different ways of Braden delivering a nice little drop off bounce pass or whatever they're going to do. Or, last game against Iowa double teamed Braden once he picked up the dribble, and Braden was kind of caught for a second and he threw the alley-oop. He was like, okay, he waited, then he threw him the alley-oop. And it just, that patience and understanding of what they're trying to do, like it's really impressive to me here lately.
It's versatile. They're versatile. They can beat you in many ways. Braden can do his thing, get the ball in Edie different and it's not just Braden too. Like I said, TKR is really comfortable getting the ball to Edie. Gillis is, Morin's great at it. Lawyers struggled a little bit as of late, but I mean, for a large part of the season, I would have said he was the best post-entry passer on the team. You can kind of just, for the most part, go up and down the roster and it's just different. It's just different this year. There's different ways to get Edie the ball. And then when he is 6 of 13 and he is struggling, or he started 0 for 3 or whatever, or 2 for 7, you have Lance Jones that can go and get you 24. You have Braden Smith who can just create for anybody, and then you have shooters surrounding him. And Lawyer goes 2 for 3 from 3, and Colvin obviously hits 3. And there's just options. It's crazy.
Yep. All right, so we're starting to wrap things up. I mean, you guys are past midnight there, so it's 11 o'clock here, Central Time Zone, the only time zone that's important on this earth. But you guys are in Eastern Time Zone, so it's past midnight. I don't really think there's anybody else that we have to overly highlight. I mean, Purdue wins, 99 to 67. So we've kind of combed through everything pretty nicely. Kraig, appreciate the updates from the press conferences. Is there any final things you guys want to add before we call it a night?
I know a lot of people are listening on their drive home. I'm getting some texts from different people that are. I know it's super foggy out there. Everybody's giving reports about dense fog. I'm worried about our guy Joe having to drive to Indy into that fog. But those of you listening, be safe out there. I know you can only have us on video right now, but hopefully you're only listening and not watching, keeping an eye on the road for the distance that you can see right now. So be safe. My man Justin Inman driving all the way back to Bedford tonight out there. Be safe on your way home, buddy.
There you go. That's definitely a good shout out. Yeah, that fog can be rough. Coming home, it's can't decide if it wants to be freezing cold, and now we're getting back into 40s and 50s. So that creates that fog, coming off this isn't a weather show. What am I doing here? The Midwestern goodbye is upon us. Joe, anything else before we cut it loose?
If Purdue shoots 67% from 3, they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. A couple highlighted chats, Blake Widmer. Let's
I highlighted this on purpose because this was pregame. There was also some stuff during the game in the comment section. We can't the comment. I was posting this to show that the comments do stay. And that chat, if there's a place, obviously there's the Boiler Diehards, which is a great place to interact during the game with a bunch of Boilers. But our YouTube chat is open. It'll be a much smaller community. Share some thoughts during the game. Feel free to do it in the comment section. If people are, we can also we can hop in a little bit too and interact with you guys there. That's why I started that.
It's a great thought. It's a great thought. A place for you guys to come in and hang out. And if you guys want to chat amongst each other while the game's going on, as you mentioned, you can also do that over at Boiler Diehards on Kraig's Facebook group. A lot of great Boilers fans over there. But also, if you wanted to put a thought in a singular moment, sometimes when a game is going so fast, you might forget that singular moment that was important to you. You could throw it in there, and it's kind of bookmarked for us to follow along later. So good eye there, Joe. Brad Prather said Braden perfect from the field tonight and a double-double. Slump officially over. Shan Cox, TKR, first Gillis combined for 15 rebounds, and that's what you're looking for from that 4 spot. Nobles, 408 games. Kraig, sounds like somebody's got to buy a jersey, right?
I sent him the link within 2 minutes after he cleared 20. He actually asked me for the link, said he would go ahead and take care of buying that himself. So he might also get a Lance dancing the Sandstorm Dance t-shirt from me in the mail as well, though, just for good fun.
I like it. And we have revealed here in the chat here tonight, Tariq Kamel came up with the nickname Dance Jones for Lance Jones. We haven't heard that yet. So you heard it here first at Boilers in the Stands. Dance Jones, he will be forever known. Logan Dodson, Braden had a hand in almost every possession in the first 10 minutes. Not a ton of points, but serious presence all game. Shan Cox, all 5 starters have scored 24 plus points in a game this season. Jeremy Armstrong, Fletcher Lawyer is over 50% from 3 in Big Ten play. So certainly hasn't hit a wall yet, as his role is a little more condensed than it was last year. And now you're starting to get the best out of Fletcher Lawyer here since Big Ten play has resumed here in January. And finally, Tom Bauner, congrats on 2,000 subs. We talked about it earlier here in the show. 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. Nice little benchmark for us here at Boilers in the Stands. So we appreciate everybody hanging out. This all started, a few years, 4 or 5 years ago as Brags in the Stands. And we've done some different things and tried out some rebranding. So, Boilers fans can understand the home they're living in here. And we appreciate all you guys being a part of this family that we're building, this community that we're building. It means a lot to us, your support. So yeah, once again, hit that like button if you haven't already. That kind of stuff certainly helps us more than you realize. The more likes, the more subs, the more our algorithm gets sent to people who may not be aware of what we do yet. And we're just going to continue to grow and find those people. So appreciate you, Tom. Appreciate everybody in the chat hanging out. That wraps things up for tonight. So we'll see you here soon. We'll do our best to try to effort some interviews and some in-week shows that aren't just post-game shows. So just stay updated for those announcements as they come. So for that being said, for Kraig Bowers and Joe Jackson, I'm Greg Braggs Jr. This is Boilers in the Stands, and always Boiler Up.